I'm Victoria. I'm Vanessa. Yeah, it's okay if you can't tell us apart. I guess we would call it Twingineering. Yeah.
Hey, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome
back.
back.
We're gonna take it. Today's episode, we do have a special guest, Veronica, our bestie from college. Thank you, Veronica, for joining us. We're so glad you're here. You're gonna provide some amazing advice. I already know it, and it's gonna be great.
No pressure. Okay, so hi, I'm Veronica Contreras, and I am from Stockton, California. I did my undergrad with Vanessa and Victoria. Our time sort of overlapped by a couple of years at UC Davis. I also studied electrical engineering, so there's a pattern here. If you have a B name, you're studying electrical engineering. Congrats. And let's see, now I'm doing my PhD at the University of Michigan, also in electrical engineering. I'm going into my 4th year, so that's really exciting. 4th year of who knows how many, but I'm sure we're counting down at this point, I hope. And I started actually doing some work in power electronics, but last summer, so after my 2nd year, I changed gears and now I'm researching laser plasma interactions. So
Nice.
quite a big change, but very exciting nonetheless. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Veronica.
It's okay.
We'll just jump in. We're gonna jump into the weekly highs and lows that we usually do, but we will start with lows so that way we can bring up the energy. So I'll just start. So some weekly lows. This past weekend, I moved into a new apartment, and honestly, I really got some battle scars, but I think what I hate the most is the unpacking. Yeah. And also, I've encountered some spiders, so that's not fun. And I always think they're gonna win, but I always come through. So yeah.
What has been your solution to getting
Oh yeah,
the
the spiders. Perimeter protector. It's this like bottle that's like battery powered, and all you gotta do is like shoot it, and boom, it's like it will not stop shooting the liquid until you let go. And I will not let go until the spider is dead.
I've actually done that before with a spider in my room. I've sprayed the spray for so long that I'm like choking on the fumes,
Like,
and I have to leave my room for like an hour until it airs out.
like, are you trying to kill the spider or me?
I'm like, for sure this cannot be good. But guess what? The spider is taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate spiders, so we have a solution to these problems, which is good.
That's good.
I'd say, wait, are you done about talking about the spider? Yeah. Okay. My weekly low is that I got an email, I think this morning or yesterday, I don't really remember, but about my student loans. They still exist, and I might have to pay them. So 2 thumbs down. That is all. Moment of silence. Just kidding. Move on.
My weekly low was that I got all dressed to go to the gym on Monday, and I was really excited about it, and then they were closed, or they closed like an hour before I got there. And I guess one could argue that why don't you just go home and go for a run around the block? I don't know. It's just like when you have in the mindset that you're gonna go and walk and uphill on the treadmill, do your hot girl 3, 12, 30 workout, whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's just running around the block just doesn't do it. So
No.
yeah. That was my low. It was just kind of a letdown.
Yeah, because then you're disappointed and like, why would you want to go around, just run around disappointed? Like,
Right.
It's like
yeah,
you either go hard or you go home.
And
So
I
it's
went
time to go
home.
home. Exactly.
as you should, as you should. Yeah, that's the rule.
As
That's
the
the rule.
saying goes.
It was not the day to go hard, and that's okay. Okay, so now we'll do some weekly highs. Let's forget about all the running and the spiders and the money we had to pay. Um, so my weekly high, I started taking a pottery class. This past Tuesday was the first one, and honestly, it was so fun. It's like on the wheel. They call it throwing. Yeah, it was fun and relaxing. And even though I couldn't make the hole big enough to make the cylinder, I know I'll do better next time because that's what Cynthia said.
Cynthia, the instructor.
Yes. Yes.
Trustworthy source.
Yeah. So yeah.
My weekly high was that I played pickleball for the first time. But actually I just thought of another one, so we could push that one to the side. I actually went to the Bryson Tiller concert. I feel like on our last episode we talked about how I got tickets, and then I went. So it was a lot of fun. It was on Sunday, so I had to work the next day, but it was worth losing my voice.
Nice.
My weekly high, so I'm gonna call this my new hobby, but I've been really into the movies and I go see a lot of movies all the time now. But there's a theater by my house, the Michigan Theater, and they did a like movie premiere last night for the Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson film. And so I went and I saw that. I did miss the first 15 minutes because I was waiting in line for popcorn, but I did get the popcorn and I did see the rest of the movie. So
Yeah.
I got the majority of it.
It's not like the first 15 minutes matter anyway.
Right. I did get a recap, so that was good. But
Nice.
yeah, that was really fun. There were lots of people. It's probably the most packed I've ever seen the Michigan Theater, which was really nice because it's like an old theater that's converted in. They like play movies there, but it's like for shows. They have a stage and stuff.
Oh.
So yeah, they can fit lots of people. They play movies there. So that it was kind of nice to just kind of see like so much community support and just to
Yeah.
see it full again. So yeah, that was some
That sounds
highlight.
really. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that sounds really cute.
It was nice.
Well, was the weather good?
Oh my
Um, the weather was good yesterday, yes. It was actually really nice.
Oh,
And today
okay.
it was raining, so classic Michigan.
Nice.
Yeah.
But now we can move on. I really wanted to know about the weather. So yeah, we also like to do sometimes some engineering news / an important article discussion. And today, Veronica will share her expertise. Well, yes.
Well, yeah, this was something interesting, not
Yeah.
exactly related to a specific engineering news article or whatever, but I mean, as you all know, probably that there was a lot of news coverage over the submersible that was going down to see the Titanic, which unfortunately had met a very catastrophic fate. But I thought that it was very interesting the way that the news articles were describing what actually happened to the submersible. I remember reading the headline from the BBC News app that said a catastrophic implosion. So I think you can kind of imagine that the submersible is going down, and under the pressure of the water, I guess we don't really know exactly what happened, but something happened and caused the walls to kind of just very, very quickly crush in on itself.
Mhm.
And I thought I kind of made a tie to my own field, which is very closely related to fusion energy. And there was this really big breakthrough last December, which became public knowledge, I think in January, about the National Ignition Facility, the NIF, achieving ignition. So this is like the fusion energy space. And one of the main parts about fusion is you have a capsule of fuel, and you basically force this capsule fuel to implode in on itself, which then gets the fuel atoms to fuse together and then release this energy. So understanding what this implosion can be kind of confusing, but I thought it was kind of cool that they used the term like catastrophic implosion, like the word implosion, so you can kind of see in a bigger sense what's actually happening on such a very small scale in the lab when they're working on these fusion experiments. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I feel like whenever there's like a real life or like something you can relate
News
to,
or
like,
yeah,
huh?
like relate like knowledge or news to. Like I was just
Yeah.
like trying to give you the word.
Yeah, it's like easier to understand. So that was good. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
But yeah, and then moving on, we also like to do or say something that we learned in our current role. For me, I was able to take a course. It was like a pretty short course, but I learned like the basics on CATIA V5, which is just like a CAD viewing software. And I feel like I didn't really get a lot of CAD experience, like towards the end of my college career and then like into when I started my career. So it was kind of good to revisit a software that introduced me to it. But it's mostly useful for when I have to look up parts. And when I started, I was not really familiar with parts on an engine. So kind of looking up these different parts and then putting them on like a page, you can kind of see how they connect to each other, like visually. That kind of helps me because I'm more of a visual learner instead of just saying, oh yeah, like the oxygen sensor connects to the catalytic converter and like that kind of stuff. It's kind of like you can see it and better for my learning. So it was very helpful. That's it for me.
uh, yeah, I didn't have anything to say this week. Thank you, Veronica. Take it away.
Well, okay, this was actually really crazy. But I was reading a research paper that my advisor wrote like, I don't know, a decade ago probably. Because it's like reading history, I guess. But she would be so upset if she knew I said that. But anyways, I was trying to understand what what type of she had some sort of like detector stack for her experiment, and I didn't understand. And basically one thing that I learned when I was like understanding how her measurement tool worked, I learned about positron emission, which is so crazy. So get this. So inside of an atom, you've got the protons and the neutrons. They're in the nucleus, and your electrons are orbiting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a type of radioactive decay called positron emission, and basically a proton can be converted into a neutron, and in that process releases a positron, which is the opposite charge of an electron. So it releases a positron and an electron neutrino. So I guess like
Wow.
the electron, neutrino, and the positron sort of like well, the neutrino is neutral charge, and then you have the neutron, which makes up the same, like approximately the same mass as the proton, and positron is the opposite of an electron, but carries the positive charge. So about how like everything, the mass is, conserved, and then the charge is also conserved. So anyways, that was a pretty crazy thing. I didn't know that like they could, I thought once you were a proton, you were always a proton, but
Same.
as it turns out, that is not true.
Born a neutron, always a neutron. Nah.
Yeah, no, you can be whatever you want to be. Is
Literally, all forms of life can literally be whatever you want to be. That's crazy.
That's the takeaway.
The takeaway is you can be whatever you want to be.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I learned something new today, so
With an asterisk if you go through radioactive decay. Okay. Anyways.
Nice. Yeah. So we can go ahead and get into this episode's theme. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we kind of wanted to use this episode to talk about like grad school. And Veronica, she's in grad school. So put two and two together, perfect for the job. So our first question, Veronica, and if you want to like add more, feel free, you can go ahead.
or if you want to pass, you're like, nah, you can do that too.
So what motivated you to pursue grad school and a PhD specifically?
Pass. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Currently unmotivated. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So this is a really good question. Especially within engineering, I feel like, because it's so common for people to go and get a job, and you can get a really great job with your bachelor's degree. So it's like, well, then why would you go spend 5 years not working?
Yeah.
But for me, I had a couple of experiences while I was in undergrad, that sort of made it seem kind of cool. So actually, and the reason why I found out about these programs is because I had a friend from high school who was an electrical engineer, I think somewhere in San Diego. And she had posted on Instagram at the time of hashtags. So she like hashtagged the program acronym. And so then I searched it and I was like, Mom, like they have these research programs that you can go to in the summer, and they'll pay for your housing and your trip out there, and they pay you to do it. And I was like, that's so cool. What a cool opportunity. So I kind of like to share those opportunities with undergraduates as they're sort of going through their program. You could apply for internships with companies, or you can also try one of these research programs. And it just so happens that the research program I went into was through the Leadership Alliance. And so I was placed at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And they had a really awesome program where they assigned me to a lab, and there were about 25 students all across STEM, and we all lived together. We all did workshops together every week. We were assigned a little cluster, so we had a couple students and maybe 8 or so grad students assigned to our clusters. There were so many grad students involved, and we had lunch with them once a week, and they would come and do activities, hikes and rafting, and they just made it seem fun. And they also coached us through like the application process. So I think there's not a lot of students that you kind of see in engineering that are going into grad school. It's just a lot of people are mostly thinking about getting a job. And so it was kind of nice to be like put in that space. And I think because of that space and having friends that were also applying to grad school, it didn't seem so weird.
Yeah.
which was really helpful. And then I took 5 years in undergrad. So they went and applied to grad school the year before me. So then I got to ask them all the advice. And I was like, this, like, did you, they were also from underrepresented backgrounds. So some of the challenges that they faced, I was like, hey, did you have this problem, talking to your family about moving away from home? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah. So you just have to remember that, you're doing this for you. And
Yeah.
so that was pretty interesting. But I think that was a huge motivator for me. I think the way the program was organized, it just kind of made you feel like you could do it.
Mhm.
And they helped you through it. And also at the end of those programs, they usually have some sort of like poster session or some time to like give a presentation on your research. And when you do it, you really feel a lot of ownership over your project. And you're like, hey, like maybe this is something I should do. So that on top of the fact that I just thought if I wanted to do grad school, it'd be way better to just kind of get it over with now, as opposed to, like if I have a family, then it would be really difficult. And like I would go make money and then take a massive pay cut to go to grad school. So I was like, well, just maybe not get myself super excited. But, coming off of the part-time jobs I've had in undergrad, it was really nice. It was actually a pay increase. So
Nice.
Nice.
yeah.
I think it's like really nice when you have like those spaces where you're introduced to that kind of stuff. Yeah, wow, I didn't know that. So
Well,
you.
you all had an episode already about like building community and why,
Yeah.
it's really important. And I think it kind of goes, it's the same thing. And it might be a culture. This is something I've been thinking about in my own life, but like, we're just like, it's part of our culture as Latinas to like have a community to be a part of.
That's true. Yeah.
And then we come to college and we're like, where is it? I must go and find it, I guess. And
Where are my people?
yeah, exactly. And so it's like I think it's something that we seek out in all the spaces we're in, or like for whatever is motivating us. And so like what worked for me in that moment was finding a group of people that were like me, also from underrepresented backgrounds. And it
Yeah.
was like this tiny, nice little group. And yeah, actually my roommate from that program is also at University of Michigan. So small world.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Well, moving on to the next question. If you want to jump back to that question at any time, feel free to. But what has your experience been like? This is a very broad question.
I guess you can like also kind of pair it with like, has it been what you expected?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Well, my experience has been filled with lots of highs and lows. I think a lot of people experience that. That said, it was not what I expected. There's something, so I'm in the PhD program, which is slightly different from the master's program, in that you kind of have an assigned research advisor. The requirements are almost identical, like the course requirements. So to me, it kind of seems like if you have your master's, you've basically done like what you need to do to get your PhD minus the like 3+ year long project you're going to work on. So like the coursework and like the sort of like breadth of knowledge in your field is almost identical. But then with the PhD, you kind of choose to like really sort of focus in on one specific topic area. So anyways, one thing that was very interesting to me about grad school and working with that advisor is that they play a lot of different roles in your life. They're kind of like your boss because you report to them once a week on average. Some people's advisors are like more present, some are less present. It just depends. So they're kind of like your boss. They're also like a mentor to you because, you're trying to get advice from them on like presentation styles and how does your poster layout look and do your slides cover everything they need to, what sorts of questions, they're a mentor to you in your field.
Yeah.
they are also sort of like a colleague, because when you do PhD, you're doing very novel research. So,
Mm.
like you can kind of see it as like you're working together to solve this problem. You're doing a lot of the work, and your advisor has major expertise in this area. So they have like really great ideas. Have you looked at it from this way? Have you tried doing this? And, from my experience, this never worked, but, doing it this way worked. So they're like a really awesome colleague to work with. But it's very confusing to manage all of those roles, right? You're like,
Mm.
it's just kind of difficult because maybe it seems like the lines are a little bit blurred.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy for, I guess it's very easy for those lines to get blurred if, there are no like real boundaries in place. So I really struggled when I first started. I think it was a really big learning experience for me on, sort of like managing expectations, and also just there's this big transition you have when you go to grad school. It's a new school, new city, new classes that you may or may not be prepared for, and that's kind of the whole thing about your first year of grad school. You're kind of getting on the same page, all the grad students on the same page. So there's that. Ultimately, my first lab did not work out. It was very difficult, and to sort of like go through the lab change process. But I think I got some really great advice from other grad students. I had a lot of support from my department, which was amazing. And I was really happy that there were like people placed in certain roles that were like there to help me, to like meet with me and give me advice, like maybe try approaching it this way. And so it really felt like I was in charge of my career trajectory throughout that whole process. But like, sometimes you think, oh, my biggest problems during my PhD are all going to be about science. And sometimes that's not always the case. It's, it can be that the lab isn't the right fit for you, and changing labs can really make all the difference. So now that I've changed labs, it's been amazing. My research advisor is so awesome. That's right.
Yes, women in engineering. It's
Yeah.
International Women in Engineering Day, by the way.
Oh, great. I think that now that I'm in this group, I realize like what exactly I needed out of a research group. She is very organized. She's on top of it, and it makes me want to be the same way. Like sometimes I think I'm organized, and then I look at my desk and I'm like, Veronica, come on. So I think like she definitely inspires me. She also is like very she cares a lot about her students, I feel like, and I think she just has a lot of admirable traits, on top of the fact that she's a brilliant physicist, and I'm like, wow, like I just want to be just like you. And so yeah, I think that it's kind of one of the first times. Actually, I had a professor back at UC Davis who, Professor Katehi, she and I took her class, and I was able to go to her for a lot of advice. And I feel like I finally found that at University of Michigan as well. Like, I feel like I can get really great life advice from my advisor, but I also get really great feedback from her on my own research. She's very approachable just about everything, and just very understanding about things that kind of go on. She's also like a real person. One time I went to her with like, I was like, okay, so I'm trying to write this code that's gonna like count these things for me. And she's like, okay. And I was like, but don't worry, I'm having some issues. These are the issues, and this is how I'm gonna try and solve it. And she's like, that sounds riveting. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. And she said, it's okay, Veronica. You don't have to lie to yourself. This is not the most glamorous part of our job, but going to conferences is fun. I was like, that was such a like real moment. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there are just some things that we have to do as part of our work that are not, you're like,
Yeah.
well, I gotta go count hundreds of circles now. This is totally fine. Yeah, there should be a way to do this. I should be able to automate this. And
Yeah.
anyways, so I just love her like realistic outlook on life. Just like, we all know there are bigger things to solve, but we're here solving these problems. So yeah, actually, since changing into this lab, I feel like I've kind of found like the perfect fit for me. My lab mates are really awesome. It's a really collaborative environment, which I feel like within my previous lab, which is kind of like circuits, power electronics, sometimes I felt like, and this might have just been my lab, maybe the field isn't this way, but in my lab, I felt like everything was like, quiet, don't tell anyone, like someone might steal our idea. Whereas in this lab, which we are still in electrical engineering, but we also have a lot of people from applied physics and nuclear engineering, like optics, so that's where the electrical engineering comes in. It's a very interdisciplinary lab. It's so much more about like doing things to advance science and collaborations to advance science. And I just feel like that's so much more like my vibe.
Yeah.
Just like way more like, let's work together to achieve this purpose or like, common goal, rather than maybe I'm just not competitive. Maybe that's what I've learned about myself. I don't know. But yeah, that I think has been much more of what I expected, was like, that we'd be all like working together and it would be fun. And, I have lunch with my lab mates, and we started like a tea time every Friday where we sit down and we talk about science or like professional development things. And I don't know, I read a journal paper with one of my lab mates every week, call it Journal Jams. We love
Nice.
yeah. Yeah, the tea time is actually more professionally known as Collaboration Cafe. So
Wow.
the only thing that could use a bit of work is Thesis Thursdays, which we do on Fridays because we wanted the alliteration to work out.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
Anyways.
like thesis Friday with an F. Please
Yeah.
don't do that.
Oh. Well, it's like not surprising, but like I guess surprising. Not really, but well, the fact that you said that you changed directions, like I know, or like changed labs, and I think for a lot of people, just the changing direction in like anywhere is like kind of scary, because you're so set on something, especially like right after college. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do this, 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 and then when that doesn't work out, it's like, oh, like having to navigate that and like, yeah, it's nice to hear that the way that you changed your direction is like working out for you and you're doing amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I was so nervous to change labs. I was like, no one ever does this. And I had a professor who he was like one of my mentors when I was like assigned a mentor through this program I was a part of. And I was like, Kevin, this is just so scary. And he's like, Veronica, you need to calm down. This is so common. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, you need to just go do it. And then I was like, but like, I was just making it like such a big deal. Like, oh, I gotta like, figure all this out. And, I think part of it is kind of a big deal when you are in the PhD because you're like, well, like I don't want it to get around to my advisor that like I'm considering switching because like I don't want them to see me differently or like, it is kind of scary. But after I did change labs, I started to meet so many people that had changed labs, even outside of my university. At a conference I was at, they're like, I also changed labs. And I was like, what? Why does no one talk about this? I was thinking I was the only one. So that was really interesting. But yeah, so it's like super common to just kind of change directions. I feel like and it can feel really scary in the moment, just kind of the unknown.
Yeah.
But I mean, the really cool thing is like when you come out with your bachelor's in electrical engineering, you have such a breadth of knowledge that you can really make lots of pivots and be totally okay.
Yeah.
There's many paths to success, and the biggest thing is, and the biggest thing I've learned probably because I changed from power electronics to basically like plasma physics, lasers, yeah. Um, the biggest thing I've learned is like at the end of the day, the work environment and like your happiness is totally correlated to your motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So, like even though I didn't know anything about plasma physics, like my lab mates are super gung-ho about this. So I was like, well, okay, I'll take the plasma physics class. Sure. It was really hard. It was really painful. Definitely one of the hardest classes I've ever taken in my life. But then you go back to your office and everyone's like, oh yeah, that class was so hard. And you're like, okay, so it wasn't just me. Why didn't you guys tell me that it was gonna be so
You're like, it's not something you wanted to share with the class, or
seriously. So, but yeah, I just feel like kind of surrounding yourself with the right people, and that's like your supervisor included is definitely crucial. Like that, having that work environment, at least, and maybe it's not for everyone. I think people can thrive in all sorts of different environments, but at least for me,
yeah,
I want to be in an all around, like productive and happy, like surrounded by people who are happy to be doing what they're doing.
yeah, I agree. So what advice do you have for those wanting to pursue or thinking about pursuing grad school?
Well, I think you should do it for sure. I mean, I think that the master's is almost like a for sure go for it. Especially if you're a Latina or Latino, like overall. There's fellowships that you can get. The GEM fellowship is one that I've personally gotten, which is really great. And they'll pay for your master's degree. So that's like pretty amazing. I think they'll even give you a small stipend on top of that, as long as you go to like a GEM partner institution, and they also set you up with a company. So you intern with that company before you go. And if it's a 2-year program, you intern with that company again the summer in between your 2 years or whatever. So it's almost like you might as well do the master's degree. I think that it can really sort of like just take a couple more classes in a certain area, get some different trains of thought that's just a little different from your undergrad, and meet a bunch of new people, make those connections, and then sort of kind of go off and do your thing. So I think the master's is like, if you're thinking about it, just do it. The PhD, I also think if you're thinking about it, just do it. But it is a bit of a longer commitment. But I mean, research is really fun. And honestly, I was actually just talking to my advisor about this this week in my meetings. Like, it really is just kind of like a job sometimes. Except it's like the college lifestyle, but like as a job almost, because you have lots of other PhD students that there's a lot of there's a really it's very collegiate environment, like literally and figuratively. So that's really fun, and lots of events and activities and things to do. But you're all going through very similar things. Yeah, everyone has an advisor and everyone's going to conferences. Oh, that's the coolest part, is going to conferences. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you get to go to conferences.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to go to Israel last summer.
Oh my God. Jaw drop.
Yeah, it was really crazy. This was actually one of the last things I did in my old research lab, the main conference that my old group submitted to happened to be hosted in Tel Aviv. So that was really awesome. I went, actually, my parents also came.
Wow.
That was fun. Yeah, so I think that's a really cool sort of like fun part to the PhD is getting to, you work really hard on, these projects and you're like, are there even milestones? Like what are the fun parts of it? And the fun parts are like you kind of wrap up your projects into little chunks as you go from every conference presentation you do.
Mm.
That's what's kind of nice is you don't just get to the end and you're like, well, what did I do in 5 years? You've developed a set of slides and maybe you've made some posters and, you go and you talk about your research. And so, yeah, that's probably why PhD students are always so excited to tell you about their research is they're like, oh, I've been trained for this. I've done this at so many poster sessions. Let me just tell you. Basically tattooed on my forehead at this point. So, yeah. So I guess my advice, if you're thinking about pursuing grad school or wanting to pursue it, I definitely think you should talk with your professors. Those are and someone that you trust, right? Like someone who you think will give you some really good advice, maybe someone that you relate to or have had a really good experience with in office hours, just asking for advice. Those are the people you want to talk to. If you're thinking about it, you're in the early stages, try doing some research with a professor, even if it's just volunteer, just see like, what makes a happy grad student? Like, what are you looking for? And talk to the grad students at your university. I think those are the best people that you can kind of chat with. And maybe try one of those summer research programs. Those are really fun. It's just like an alternative to doing an internship. Maybe you'll get paid a little bit less, but you still make some money. You meet a lot of people. They'll help you prepare your documents, usually like your application documents. And yeah, so I think that there's ways to figure out like if it's worth trying.
Yeah.
Except for the masters. I feel like if you're kind of on the fence about the masters, I hope you can just kind of like go over and just go do it. Because
Hop the fence.
Yeah, jump over the fence. I think like if your company's not going to pay for the masters, like there are other ways, like look into the GEM fellowship, especially. Yeah, and GEM is a really fun program. They have conferences every year that are really, really fun. I found that the minority focused conferences are some of the most fun and exciting because you just automatically you just vibe with everyone because everyone's like, everyone gets it. And it's the same with the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, I feel like.
I agree.
Their STEM conference. Like the first time I'm surrounded by 99 other students that are also Hispanic and also in STEM. It's like, wow, when does this ever happen?
Yeah. It's like really crazy to look at. Like I went to it was just like a day, like a ship conference. But it was like crazy to think like everyone in that room is also doing engineering. You know what I mean? Or like science or like I think they're mostly engineering, but because like you never ever see that. And then it's like and then you like think about it and you're like, wait, we are actually all engineers in here. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
And you're like, and there's only 3 of us in our class?
Yeah.
Like, how many schools do we come from?
Guys, it actually was only the 3 of us. Just kidding. A little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, I remember sitting in at 140 maybe physical electronics, and I remember telling Jasmine, I was like, when we were thinking about coffee, I think we had already made the acronym at this point, and I was like, Jasmine, do you think that we should make it like a Latinas in electrical engineering thing? And she's like, what? There's gonna be like 4 people in the club? I was like, okay. She's like, Yumi and Katia. I was like, all right, yeah, this is true. So, we gotta bring people in.
Yeah, that's the hard part too. It's like you try to like create this inclusive environment for like
The
people like
minority.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then it's like hard because there's also like not many of us to start with. So it's like then you gotta be like, not that you don't want to be inclusive, but then you have to like be more inclusive so that, you know, it's not just
Exactly.
three of you in the room at every event. Banquet for three. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had that at we have a group for women in ECE at Michigan. That is the Club Women in ECE, WECE. And we had we had a dinner like as a celebration event, and I think there were 8 of us. And it was like a celebration of women in ECE, and the waitress comes over and she's like, "So I know this is a celebration, but what are we celebrating?" And we're like, "Us." But it was kind of like, it's like kind of hard to, there's not that many to start with. And then,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, we need to find the part that's wanting to be a part of a community, the subset that wants to be part of the community. And, then there's a subset that, is just like, look, I just want to get my studies done, and maybe they won't ever join. And then maybe there's another subset that's like, I would love to join, but I have so many other things to do, so I just can't. And, so we're just fighting with lots of different things. But for the people that want the community, I think it's amazing that the community exists.
That's true. Yes. You are amazing with words.
Thank you.
So we can get into the submitted questions. First one. Knowing that California has a large Latinx population, has moving away had an impact? Guessing on you.
I remember
Yes.
I think when you first moved, you're talking about like hot Cheetos not being available to you.
So they did have hot Cheetos, but they didn't have the ones con limon.
Oh.
Yeah. And they've recently started to sell them. But let me tell you, I did email Cheetos multiple times. And I did also message Chester Cheetah on Instagram at some point. So I was like, dude, this is a problem. And hey, then they started showing up in the grocery stores. So
Oh.
I don't know if it was me or what, but they do sell hot Cheetos con limon in Ann Arbor now.
Wow, you are making a difference in all types of areas of your life. Yeah.
I got my fingers in all the whatever. A toad dipped in all the ponds or whatever.
However that phrase goes.
I don't even know if that's a phrase, but it seems like so yeah, that was definitely a challenge for sure. But I think right now, it's really hard to find good food, like food that reminds me of home out here.
It's true.
It's really hard. Basically, I mean, even in your hometown, you probably kind of know. I think there are some here. I'm like, that sign is way too shiny. There's too many lights on it. I don't know. It just doesn't really see. It's in the busy part of town. I don't know if it's gonna be good. I don't know. But I did find one place that's in the next town over from me. It's called Minis. That's free advertising for them. It's really good.
You're like, this is not sponsored.
Not sponsored, but I'll be a spokesperson. Yeah, it's a really crazy place. They have no tables. It's like takeout only. And I was like, honestly, I'm here for it. So I think after finding that place, it's like when I'm craving Mexican food or an horchata, then I like know where to go. 20 minutes, then my happiness has been achieved.
Nice.
So that's good. But I wish that there still was a place where I could get tamales or something but it's like I have my favorite place in my hometown, and like nothing else can even there's like other places in my hometown that I'm like, nah, it's like only this grocery store.
Yeah.
So
No.
go.
When when I went back home for like winter, the holidays,
Mhm.
and I brought back because my grandma was there, so we made tamales together, and I brought some back, and then I also went to the panaderia, so I brought some bread also, and I was like, once that I ate it all, I was like, not until next Christmas.
Aw.
So I
Yeah.
did.
Were
Yeah.
you just on the plane with like your bag of tamales?
Well, I had to put them in a carry-on because I had the bread and the tamales, so and then
Okay.
I had my luggage of my other stuff, so
You're like, I checked that. Okay.
yeah.
That can
We're
get lost.
good. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely the hardest. And I also find myself like I'll hear people speaking Spanish and I'll be like like I'm surprised when that happens. But it I don't know. I remember when I went with my family to Mexico City and it was amazing just to like hear Spanish everywhere. But even when I went home at the end of April, just being in the airport, you hear Spanish. It's just like you just you just kind of start to forget that like, you have a whole city and there's culture there and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that definitely was difficult. Oh, and the other thing too was just like there's no place to get like those I don't really know if there's a term for them, but those like little pinwheel looking chip
The
things.
chips?
The
Yeah.
chips. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like no place I've seen those. Like there's no like guy with his car cutting the mangoes
Yeah.
with the tahini.
That
Like there's
yeah.
not there's none of that.
Yeah.
Elote, not a thing.
And
Um, so yeah, I don't know, you just kind of miss that, the paletas and
yeah. I found like a Mexican market like where I live, but it's like
but it's like
40
when it's a hot
minutes,
day, where's the guy in the corner to
right? Like they usually just come down the block and
they
it's like let's
anticipate my
follow them.
meat. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
miss that too.
But
Yeah,
yeah, so I guess it's mostly food related. But I mean, food is a huge problem. We eat 3 times a day. Like,
as you're
there's,
supposed to. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, that's been hard. And of course, like being away from my family is really hard. I feel like I've missed a lot of things, a couple weddings, funerals, lots of birthday parties. Obviously, I've been gone for 3 years. Um, so yeah, that kind
Yeah,
of sucks.
yeah,
But, you know. Now I just try to think about it like it's just a short time and then I'll go back and life will be good again.
life will be cultured again.
Yeah, exactly. Hot Cheetos con limon will be plentiful.
No need to email or direct message.
No, I know. I'm like, I didn't know I had so many jobs to do in Michigan. Like,
Uh,
I make the world go round here. I'm just
you do, you do. Woman's him. Um, okay, so the next question, um, are there any new or different problems that you've noticed or faced in grad school in comparison to undergrad?
I think like as a Latina, I forgot to add that part. Sorry.
Oh, as
Well,
a
there's
Latina.
definitely even fewer.
Yeah.
I have 2 Latina friends, and that's like in the whole department.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's I think like I don't know if part of it is because like there's just less Hispanic population in Michigan. I don't know if that's part of it or like I guess it'd be interesting to compare the number of Latinas in the electrical engineering departments in the schools in California. Like maybe they have higher numbers because there's more Hispanics there. But also like I left the state, so I don't know. But I feel like having less of us is definitely a bit harder because you're
Yeah.
like it's harder to find community. Um,
Yeah.
but one of my really good friends is from California. She was like a really huge help to me when I first moved here. She sent me like this really long email, even though she had no clue who I was, just like about places near where I was living and like this is where I could go eat and the food would be good there
Aw.
and we could go to Detroit together and
Aw.
get pan dulce and just like all these things and to this day she's one of my really good friends and actually gave me her car when she got a new one.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was pretty crazy.
The
Um,
community's like this.
yeah, seriously. Um, so yeah, I think as a Latina that's something like finding the community has been harder than anticipated. Because I mean, you even realize it in undergrad, right? Like there's SWE,
Yeah.
and there can be like a club like Gales, the Chicano and
That,
Latinx in engineering and science.
yeah.
But maybe not all of them are in electrical engineering. So like
Yeah.
that's what's always hard is like find if for some reason electrical engineering just doesn't have enough.
Yeah.
And so
They're
like
never.
we don't have enough representation in these clubs. And so
Yeah.
you kind of like don't really feel like you have community within your community.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And yeah, so I feel like that's especially harder in grad school.
Yeah.
Um,
I think also maybe it has something to do with it, maybe it doesn't. But like, especially for like first gens, like right after college, there's always a push to like get a job and like start making money and like give back to like, your family and that kind of stuff. Like it's kind of like embedded at some point in your life. So then
yeah.
like out of undergrad, you're like, all right, like you have to find a job. So I think there's more of a push to get a job than there is to go to grad school because then it's like you pay more, you go to school longer. Sometimes you have to pay also, not sometimes, I don't know why I said that. But so yeah, I feel like that can also play a part in it. But yeah.
And sometimes like if you are first gen, your family may not understand the benefits of getting a
Yeah.
higher, advanced degree after your bachelor's. They may be like, like one, they may not know that other options even exist. I do have some friends that are
Yeah.
like, I didn't even know that I could get this other degree. So there's that, but like also, your family might not understand like the added benefits of spending an extra year or 2 years in a master's program
Yeah.
and like this could like increase your starting salary and just give you some more expertise and give you just a smaller leg up and so I think that's always really hard and especially I mean you guys both moved away from home to go to UC Davis but I was fairly close so like having to talk to my parents about moving away
Mm,
was something that I did have to go through when moving to grad school as opposed to undergrad. So that was really hard. And one of those things I leaned on my friends who, from that program in Boulder, I was like, hey, did you have a hard time communicating to your parents about like moving across the country? And they're like, yes, we did. These are like the exact lines. They sent me like direct quotes of like things that they said to their parents. And because like it's part of our culture like we respect our parents and so it's not like we're just gonna be like well I'm leaving bye you know
yeah.
so I that was definitely challenging and of course I don't know if my mom even remembers this conversation but one of the times I was on the phone I think that it was kind of becoming more clear that I was going to go to Michigan. And I was on the phone with her. I remember exactly where I was, like right by that like Kemper Boehner Gaussy bike circle. I remember I was on the phone with her and she's like, well, I guess if you go that far, we won't be able to give you food anymore. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm heading into class, I gotta go. And I just ran to the bathroom and I cried because when I was an
Oh,
undergrad, they would like cook food for me and freeze it. And then every time I would go home, I would bring this like ice chest full of like frozen meals that my parents had cooked or like my grandma or whatever. And then I would just defrost them. And she's like, well, if you go that far, we won't be able to cook you any meals. And I was like, so sad. Like,
yeah.
take me while I'm down.
I know. Like that was my 13th reason. Oh my God. Yeah.
So that was something that I don't know, I feel like it could have been anticipated as would be an issue, but it's different when you actually have to go through it. But my parents came to Michigan to move me into my house. And I
Yeah.
think, we walked around the campus and I think they were like, oh, this is a really, really great opportunity. There's gonna, a lot of doors will be opened if she goes through this. And so I think that sort of helped get them more comfortable with it. They met my housemates because of course I was moving across the country and I moved into a house with 3 guys that were like also PhD students in engineering, and I think they're just like about to hyperventilate and explode. And then they met them, they're like, oh, they're like really great guys. I mean, they've become like my family here, and I've made a lot of friends through them because I moved during COVID. So yeah, they really did become my family. I couldn't actually talk to anyone else, but just kidding. But I think a lot of those things helped sort of mitigate those challenges of moving, all of that.
Nice. That was a really good answer, I think. Covered a lot of bases. Do you have any plans for after grad school at the moment?
Well, I feel like the easy answer is to say, well, I'll probably get a postdoc somewhere. Which is, I don't know. Do you guys know what a postdoc is?
Oh, I was gonna let you explain.
So postdoc is kind of like it's kind of like being a PhD student, but somewhere else. Or you kind of use it as an extra, usually it's a 1 or 2 year appointment. You kind of use it as extra time to build some other skills. So for example, there was a student who graduated from my research group. We do like a lot of experimental work. He graduated from my group in October, I think, and now he's doing his postdoc also at Michigan, but in our computational group. So he's using this time to sort of like become more theory oriented and do some computational work, and then he hopes to become a professor someday. So you can do something like that. You can also go and the point of that is to just kind of like get more publications, do some more research in like a more specific area, but you've already done your PhD. You can do independent research and you just kind of get exposed to different ideas and stuff. So I think kind of the easy answer is like maybe I'll go somewhere and do a postdoc at a national lab or at a university closer to home is probably what my mom would like me to say. But yeah, I think ultimately it would be really awesome to work as a staff scientist at one of the national labs. Lawrence Livermore would be like the dream because they have the National Ignition Facility and their big fancy lasers. So that would be pretty cool.
That seems fitting. So
if the shoe fits, right?
yeah. Follow your dreams. You can be anything you want to be.
All right, cut.
Our closer.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
so
for
much.
joining us.
I hope I answered all your questions, and if anything comes up, you know where to find me.
Yes.
I'm gonna change my number after this, but I'm just kidding.
I'll be missing him.
Yeah, you're just gonna show up knocking out my door.
Veronica?
Yeah, we actually have questions.
But
No,
yeah,
but seriously, you know where to find me. Always happy to help. Um, yeah.
yeah.
You can find me on
Right.
LinkedIn. I have no social media except Facebook.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
noticed. I was like, oh.
Oh, no. Hey,
Can't
well, that's
really tag
good. I'm not completely off the radar yet.
her.
Still find me.
Well, yeah.
Personal website coming soon.
No, I'll be on that. But yeah, if you've listened this far, we hope you gained something from today's episode. Sorry, I paused. I know I did. Thank you, Veronica, for being here. It was nice catching up / making this episode with you. But yeah, we'll just provide any helpful links in this in the caption. But the one takeaway from today's, if we want you to take away anything, it's that you can be whatever you want to be. So that is it.
Thank you.
Signing
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye.